Late October night, behind the abandoned riverside mill, Keisha crouches in the shadows, watching orange flames swallow the black sedan that just crashed through the guardrail. Duke growls beside her. She knows she should run. Homeless black girl at a crime scene means trouble. But screams pierce the night. Two men trapped inside. Her hands shake as she grabs Duke's collar. The choice she makes in the next 30 seconds will expose secrets that could destroy Millbrook's most powerful families. If she survives, what comes after? Keisha's feet move before her mind catches up, sprinting toward the inferno with Duke barking frantically behind her. The heat hits her face like a physical force, and smoke clogs her throat. But those screams, those desperate human screams, they override every survival instinct telling her to run the other way. She yanks off her jacket, wraps it around her fist, and slams it against the rear passenger window. The glass holds. She grabs a rock from the ground, bigger than her palm, and swings with everything she has. The window spiders, then shatters. Flames lick through the broken opening, singeing her eyebrows, and she can see him now, a man slumped against the far door, unconscious, blood streaming from his temple. Keisha reaches through, ignoring the glass cutting her arms, ignoring the metal burning her skin, and unlocks the door. She drags him out, his weight nearly toppling her 17-year-old frame, but adrenaline floods her system and she hauls him across the gravel, away from the car. Duke circles them, whining. She runs back. The front seat holds another person, a woman, semi-conscious, trying to unbuckle her seatbelt with trembling fingers. Keisha wrenches open the mangled driver's door, metal screaming in protest, and helps with the buckle. It finally clicks free. The woman gasps something, her voice barely audible over the roar of flames. Briefcase, evidence, back seat. Keisha looks at the inferno, at this stranger back at the fire. She dives in one more time, feeling the heat sear her lungs, grabs the metal briefcase from the footwell, and pulls back just as the entire front seat ignites in a whoosh of fire. She drags the woman clear, and they're barely 20 feet away when the gas tank explodes, the force of it knocking Keisha flat on her back. Her ears ring. Duke is suddenly there, licking her face, and she sits up, coughing, her hands screaming in pain. The woman, the one she just saved, blinks at her through the smoke and haze. Their eyes meet. The woman's hand moves to her hip, to a holster, and Keisha sees the gun. Instinct takes over, the kind learned from 2 years on Millbrook streets. Her hands shoot up, palms out, fingers spread. Don't shoot, I didn't do anything wrong. The practiced gesture of surrender, performed so many times before when police rolled up on her sleeping spot, when shop owners accused her of stealing, when anyone saw a skinny black girl in dirty clothes, an assumed criminal. The woman's face changes, recognition of what she's doing, what she's assuming, and her hand drops away from the weapon. Her lips move. Sorry, thank you. Keisha's hands shake as she lowers them. She finds the woman's phone on the ground where it fell, dials 911 with burned fingers, gives the location in a hoarse voice, and hangs up before they can ask her name. Sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Red and blue lights paint the trees. Keisha stands, picks up the briefcase because it seems important, and that's when Sheriff Morrison's cruiser screams into the clearing. He's out of the vehicle before it fully stops, and his eyes land on Keisha, on the briefcase in her hands, and his face goes white as milk. He crosses the distance in 4 strides, grabs her arm hard enough to bruise. What the hell are you doing here? What did you take? His fingers dig into her burned skin, and she gasps in pain. I didn't take anything. I saved them. Deputy Tommy Reed pulls up next, gun already drawn, pointing it at her, at this 17-year-old girl with a dog and burned hands. Step away from the evidence. On the ground, now. Keisha's knees hit the gravel, hands behind her head, another practiced motion. Duke barks, aggressive, protective, and Reed swings his gun toward the dog. No! Keisha screams. The woman, the one from the car, lifts her head from where paramedics are loading her onto a stretcher. Her voice is weak but clear. No, she saved us. She pulled us out. The paramedics rush the woman toward the ambulance, and the man, still unconscious, follows on a second stretcher. Morrison rips the briefcase from Keisha's grip. His face is close to hers now, coffee and tobacco on his breath, his voice low and venomous. "You breathe a word about tonight, I'll make sure you're locked up for arson and attempted murder. Nobody believes homeless thieves. You understand me?" Keisha nods, terror turning her blood to ice. Morrison straightens, all professional now, calling orders to Reed and the other arriving deputies. In the chaos of emergency vehicles and flashing lights, Keisha grabs Duke's collar and backs away. 1 step, 2 steps, then they're running, crashing through the underbrush, branches whipping her face, her burned hands throbbing with every pump of her arms. They don't stop until they reach the old boxcar near the train tracks, her home for the past 8 months, and she collapses inside, Duke pressing against her, and she knows with absolute certainty that briefcase was important, and the sheriff is hiding something terrible. Morning light filters through the gaps in the boxcar's rusted walls, and Keisha sits up, every muscle in her body screaming protest. Her hands are blistered, angry red welts crossing her palms and fingers where she grabbed hot metal and broken glass. She digs through her pack, pulls out the first aid supplies she lifted from the drugstore 2 weeks ago, antiseptic cream and gauze she'd hoped she wouldn't need. The cream stings so badly she bites her lip to keep from crying out, but she wraps her hands carefully, using her teeth to help secure the bandages. Duke watches, his brown eyes worried, and she scratches behind his ears with her wrist, unable to use her fingers. At Millbrook General Hospital, Agent Marcus Chen opens his eyes to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of monitors. A nurse notices, calls for the doctor, and within minutes he's surrounded by medical staff checking his vitals, shining lights in his eyes, asking him questions. "Where does it hurt? What's your name? Do you know what happened?" He remembers the crash, the screech of metal, the heat of fire, and then hands, small hands pulling him to safety. "My partner," he croaks. "Rachel Foster." "Is she?" The doctor nods. "She's fine, down the hall, already awake." "You both got lucky." "Lucky?" Chen thinks. "No, they got saved." "Who pulled us out?" The doctor glances at his chart. "According to the sheriff, no one. You both managed to get out on your own before the explosion. That's not right." Chen remembers being unconscious, remembers nothing after the initial impact. He waits until the medical staff leaves, then forces himself out of bed, 4-pole rolling beside him, and makes his way down the hall to Foster's room. She's sitting up, bandaged but alert, and her face floods with relief when she sees him. "Marcus, thank God," I thought. They embrace briefly, carefully, both aware of their injuries. "Tell me what you remember," Chen says. Foster's account matches his gaps and fills them in. The crash was deliberate. Someone forced them off the road. A girl pulled them out. Young, black, maybe 16 or 17, thin like she hadn't eaten well in months, and she had a dog with her. The briefcase, their evidence. The girl got that too. "Where is it now?" Chen asks. Foster shakes her head. "I don't know. I told the sheriff about the girl, said we needed to find her, thank her, take her statement. He said I was confused from smoke inhalation, said there was no girl, said he found no briefcase." Chen's jaw tightens. That briefcase contained 6 months of investigation, witness statements from trafficking victims, financial records showing money laundering through Millbrook businesses, surveillance footage of Sheriff Morrison himself, meeting with known criminals. Without it, their case evaporates. "Morrison's involved," Chen says. "It's not a question," Foster nods. "Has to be. The timing, him claiming there was no girl, the briefcase vanishing. He's covering up." Chen thinks of his brother David, 23 years old, who came to Millbrook 6 months ago investigating rumors of missing persons, young people who disappeared from small southern towns. David sent one text saying he was close to something big, and then nothing. No calls, no messages, and when Chen filed a missing persons report, Millbrook PD barely investigated. Said David probably just moved on, didn't want to be found, but David wouldn't do that. David called their mom every Sunday without fail. The investigation into trafficking networks brought Chen to Millbrook, following the same threads his brother had pulled, and now someone had tried to kill him too. That evening, Millbrook's town council meets in the old courthouse. Mayor Edward Hutchins, 64 years old with silver hair and a politician's smile, addresses the room full of concerned citizens. The incident last night was unfortunate, but our brave Sheriff Morrison has the situation under control. 2 federal agents were in a car accident, possibly related to an ongoing investigation. We're cooperating fully with federal authorities. Someone in the back raises a hand, an older white man in overalls. I heard there was a girl there, that homeless one that's been around town. She involved? Murmurs ripple through the crowd, and Hutchins' smile tightens. Now, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation, but I will say this. We've had complaints about the vagrant situation in Millbrook for some time. Young people, no homes, no supervision, getting into all kinds of trouble. A woman in the front row, white, 50s, pearl necklace, chimes in. That girl's been stealing from shops for months. My store lost merchandise, probably working with whoever tried to kill those agents. Probably was part of it. More agreement from the crowd, heads nodding, and Keisha's guilt is decided without evidence, without trial, without her even being present to defend herself. Only one voice dissents. Miss Carolyn Baptiste, 72 years old, stands slowly from her seat near the back. She's been in Millbrook her entire life, runs the soup kitchen out of the Baptist church, and her voice carries the weight of years. That child never stole nothing. Y'all just want someone to blame who can't fight back. She's been coming to my kitchen for 2 years, polite as can be, always says thank you, helps clean up after meals. She ain't in any gang, ain't part of any crime. She's a kid trying to survive. The pearl necklace woman waves dismissively. Carolyn, you're too trusting. These street kids, they're good at manipulation. She probably has you fooled too. Hutchins calls for order. Regardless of individual opinions, the council has a responsibility to public safety. I'm authorizing Sheriff Morrison to take necessary steps to remove the vagrant problem from Millbrook. For their own good, of course. Get them into proper facilities, shelters, services. Code words, Carolyn knows. What it really means is, arrest them, run them out of town, make sure they can't testify to anything they might have seen. The vote passes 8-2. Night falls and Keisha huddles in her boxcar, Duke curled against her side for warmth. She's almost asleep when Duke's head snaps up, ears forward, a low growl building in his chest. Footsteps outside, trying to be quiet but crunching on gravel. 2 sets. Voices, male, young. She's got to be around here somewhere. Check the boxcar. Keisha's blood turns to ice. She looks for an escape, but there's only one door, and they're coming from that direction. She presses herself into the darkest corner, hand on Duke's collar, praying they'll pass by. The door scrapes open and flashlight beams cut through the darkness. There! I see the dog. Duke lunges, barking furiously, and the flashlights swing toward them. Grab her! The girl saw too much. One of them reaches for Keisha and Duke attacks, sinking teeth into the man's arm. The man screams, drops his flashlight, tries to shake Duke off. The second man raises something. A metal pipe swings it at Duke's head. Keisha doesn't think, just moves, throwing herself between Duke and the weapon. It catches her shoulder instead, pain exploding down her arm, but she uses the momentum to roll, kick out hard, catches the second man in the knee. He goes down cursing. Duke releases the first man's arm and goes for his throat. The man falls backward, hands up, shouting for Duke to stop. Duke, here! Keisha yells, and her dog, trained through 2 years of survival together, obeys instantly, returning to her side. She runs, bursting out of the boxcar with Duke at her heels, crashing through the woods with no destination except away. Behind her, the men are shouting, one calling to the other about his arm, and she hears Duke yelping, a sound that tears her heart in half. She skids to a stop. Duke is her only family, the only living thing that cares whether she lives or dies. She can keep running, save herself, or she can go back. The choice isn't really a choice at all. Keisha turns around, runs back toward the boxcar, and finds Duke limping but standing, hackles raised, positioned between her and the 2 attackers. One man is down, unconscious, Duke's handiwork. The other is backing away, holding his bleeding arm, fear in his eyes. Stay away from us, Keisha says, her voice steadier than she feels. The man turns and runs, leaving his partner behind. Keisha kneels by the unconscious man, checks his pockets, finds a phone and a wallet. The wallet contains $217 in cash, a driver's license, and a deputy sheriff's badge. Deputy Tommy Reed, the same one who pointed his gun at her last night. She takes the phone and the wallet, leaves Reed unconscious in the dirt, and disappears into the night with Duke limping beside her, and she realizes with crystal clarity that the police aren't coming to help her. They're coming to kill her. Keisha spends Sunday morning in the basement of the Methodist Church, a space she's used before when the weather turns brutal. Services are happening upstairs, voices raised in hymns, and she uses the sound as cover while she tends to Duke's injuries. He's got a gash on his shoulder, not deep, but bleeding, and she cleans it with water from the bathroom sink, wraps it with torn strips from an old t-shirt. Her own shoulder throbs where the pipe connected, already turning purple. She pulls out Reed's stolen phone, password protected, but she's learned tricks at the public library. After several attempts using common patterns, it unlocks. The text messages make her stomach turn. Conversations between Reed and an unknown number, discussing the elimination of the witness, how the homeless girl saw too much, how she needs to be handled quietly. No direct mention of killing, but the implication is clear enough. Keisha screenshots everything, creates a new email account on the phone, sends the images to her library computer account, the one she uses for job applications and homework when the librarians let her in. She's deleting the sent folder when footsteps descend the stairs. She shoves the phone in her pocket, grabs Duke's collar, ready to bolt, but the face that appears is Agent Foster's. The agent looks rough, bandaged and bruised, moving carefully, but her eyes are sharp and alert. "Easy," Foster says, hands visible and empty. "I'm not here to hurt you." Keisha backs up, Duke growling. "How did you find me?" "Miss Carolyn. She told me where you usually hide. Took some convincing, but I told her I was FBI, and I needed to thank you for saving my life." Foster moves slowly down the stairs, no sudden movements. "I know what you did. I remember. You pulled us out of that car. Your sheriff says I wasn't there," Keisha says, her voice hard. Foster nods. "He's lying. I know he's lying. That's why I need your help. I don't trust cops. I'm not a cop. I'm a federal agent. Different." "Same gun, same badge, same system," Keisha shoots back. Foster stops, considers this, and surprises Keisha by nodding. "You're right. It is the same system. And that system has failed you. I can see that. But I'm asking you to take a chance on me anyway, because right now, you and I are the only ones who know the truth about what happened that night." "What truth?" Foster sits on the bottom step, moving like her ribs hurt. "Someone tried to kill my partner and me. They ran us off the road deliberately. We were investigating a trafficking network operating through small towns in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. Moving people, mostly young people, selling them. The briefcase you saved had our evidence. Now it's gone, and Sheriff Morrison claims it never existed." Keisha pulls out Reed's phone, tosses it to Foster. "Your deputy tried to kill me last night. Him and another guy. Check his messages." Foster scrolls through the phone, her expression darkening with each screen. This is direct evidence of conspiracy. We can use this." She looks up at Keisha. "I need to know everything you saw that night. Everything." Keisha hesitates. In her experience, talking to authorities means getting blamed, getting locked up, getting lost in a system that doesn't care about girls like her. But Foster doesn't look away, doesn't fill the silence with promises she can't keep, just waits. Finally, Keisha speaks. "I saw the sheriff at the mill before, about a week ago, late at night. He was meeting with some men in suits, expensive cars. They were moving boxes from a truck into the old mill building. I was sleeping in the woods nearby, heard the trucks, woke up. I watched them for maybe 20 minutes before they left." Foster leans forward. "Could you identify any of the men?" "Not faces. It was dark, but I know their cars. Black SUV, license plate started with HLN, silver Mercedes, no front plate. That's good. That's really good." Foster pauses. "Look, I know you don't trust the system. I wouldn't either if I were you. You want to know why? She rolls up her sleeve, shows a faded scar on her forearm. When I was 16, my dad was arrested for armed robbery. He didn't do it. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong skin color. He was black, poor, working 2 jobs, and the police needed someone to blame. He got 10 years, lost everything. My mom, me, my brother, we ended up homeless for a while. Lived in our car, then a shelter. I know what it's like to be invisible, to have people look through you like you don't exist. Keisha studies Foster's face, looking for lies, for manipulation, but finds only exhaustion and sincerity. If you know what it's like, then you know why I can't trust you. I do, and I'm asking you to trust me anyway. Not because of my badge, but because we both want the same thing. Justice, answers, and maybe revenge on the people who've been hurting kids like you. That last word, revenge, it resonates. Keisha thinks of all the times she's been chased, accused, ignored, treated like trash. She thinks of her mother, gone when Keisha was 2, and the foster homes after that, and the streets when the last home didn't work out. She thinks of Duke, bleeding and loyal, and how close she came to losing him. Okay, she says, but I have conditions. We don't just go after the sheriff. We find out what happened to all the missing kids. Not just your partner's brother, all of them. The black kids, the Latino kids, the poor kids nobody looked for. Foster's face softens. You know about Agent Chen's brother? I heard talk at the soup kitchen. People saying an Asian guy was asking questions about missing kids. Then he disappeared too. That's why you're really here, isn't it? Not just the trafficking, it's personal. Yes, Foster admits. David Chen is Marcus's younger brother. But you're right. It's not just about David. There are 17 documented disappearances in this region over the past 3 years. 17 young people, gone. Most of them were minorities. Most of them were poor. And most of their cases were barely investigated. Make it 20, Keisha says quietly. 3 more I knew from the streets. Jamal, Destiny, Carlos. They disappeared in the last 6 months. Nobody filed reports because they didn't have family who cared. Foster stands, extends her hand. Then we find all 20. Deal? Keisha looks at the offered hand, at this FBI agent who shared her story, who's offering partnership instead of orders. She reaches out with her bandaged hand and they shake. Duke, sensing the shift, stops growling and sits. Foster's phone rings. She answers, listens, and her face goes pale. What? Keisha asks. That was the hospital. Someone attacked Marcus, tried to inject air into his IV line. He fought back, survived, but he's in critical condition now. They're moving him to intensive care. Foster looks at Keisha. They're cleaning up. Anyone who knows anything. You're not safe. I can get you into witness protection, federal custody, but Duke can't come, Keisha finishes. I won't leave him. Foster nods like she expected this answer. Then we go on offense. You know this town better than anyone. Every hiding place, every secret path, every person who sees what others don't. Help me build a case from the ground up. We gather evidence, we find witnesses, we document everything until it's impossible for them to hide. Keisha feels something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope, maybe? Or purpose? I'll help. But we do this right. We find those 20 kids. We expose everyone involved. And we make sure the whole country sees what happened here. Foster smiles, a fierce expression. Agreed. Where do we start? Keisha thinks. The mill. That's where they're moving stuff. Where they're probably holding people. We go there tonight, we look around. But first, I need food. Fighting corruption is hard on an empty stomach. They head to Carolyn's soup kitchen together, an FBI agent and a homeless teenager, and begin planning how to take down Millbrook's most powerful people. 3 days of careful work follow. 3 days of Keisha showing Foster all the invisible spaces of Millbrook, all the places people like her learn to see, because survival depends on knowing where to hide, where to watch, where to run. They start at the Riverside Mill, approaching through the woods at dawn when shift changes mean minimal security. Keisha knows the pattern now, has watched it for months, and she leads Foster through the underbrush to a position with clear sight lines. The mill is supposedly abandoned, shut down 15 years ago when the textile industry moved overseas, but trucks come and go at odd hours and lights burn in windows that should be dark. They spend 6 hours there, taking photos, noting license plates, documenting everything. Foster teaches Keisha how to collect evidence properly, how to preserve chain of custody, how to build a prosecutable case. Keisha teaches Foster how to move without sound, how to read the small signs that indicate someone's coming, how to trust her instincts about danger. When they finally enter the mill through a broken window in the back, they find a staging area. The main floor is empty, abandoned equipment rusting in corners, but the basement tells a different story. Recent tire tracks in the dust, discarded zip ties on the floor, a folding table with empty water bottles. Someone's been here, and recently. Foster photographs everything, collects the zip ties as evidence, marks the GPS coordinates. They find another room, smaller, with a heavy door and a new lock. Through the gap at the bottom, Keisha can see stains on the concrete floor, dark brown, could be blood or oil or anything, but her gut says blood. Foster takes samples. That night, they watch from the woods as 2 vehicles arrive. Black SUV, the same one Keisha saw before, and a white van with no side windows. 4 men get out, Sheriff Morrison among them. They open the van's back doors and Keisha's breath catches. People, young people, teenagers and 20-somethings, being herded into the mill. She counts 7 of them. Hands bound, moving slowly like they've been drugged. Foster's hand grips her shoulder, holds her back when Keisha starts to rise. "Not yet," Foster whispers. "We call for backup. We do this right." But when Foster tries her phone, there's no signal. They're in a dead zone, intentional probably, and by the time they hike back to where they can call, the vehicles are gone. Foster reports what they saw to FBI headquarters, requests immediate backup and a raid. The response is bureaucratic, slow. They need warrants, need to coordinate with local authorities, need approvals. Foster argues, but protocol is protocol. While they wait, they interview families. Foster has a list of missing persons, and she starts making calls, knocking on doors, asking to speak with parents and siblings and friends. Keisha goes with her, and the difference is stark and painful. The white families whose children disappeared, they got investigations. Maybe not thorough ones, maybe not effective ones, but police came, asked questions, filled out reports, made at least a minimal effort. The black families got dismissed. Keisha sits in living rooms and hears the same story over and over. "We filed a report. They said our son was probably in Atlanta doing drugs. We called every week for updates. They stopped returning our calls. We begged them to look for our daughter. They said she was a runaway and would come home when she was ready. She never came home." One mother, Mrs. Williams, shows them her son Jamal's room, preserved exactly as he left it 2 years ago. Jamal wanted to be a teacher, had college applications ready, volunteered at the youth center. He wasn't a runaway. He was 17 years old, black, poor, and when he disappeared walking home from his part-time job, Sheriff Morrison spent 2 days on the case before declaring it closed. They said there was no evidence of foul play, Mrs. Williams says, tears streaming down her face. Said Jamal probably just wanted a fresh start somewhere else. But his phone was here. His wallet was here. He wouldn't leave without those. He wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. Foster writes it all down, promises she'll find answers. And Keisha sees her own story reflected in Mrs. Williams's grief. This is what the system does. It sorts people into categories, decides who matters and who doesn't, and the poor black kids end up in the doesn't column every single time. By the 3rd day, Foster has documented 12 cases with clear racial bias in how they were investigated. Keisha's list of 3 missing friends is now confirmed as 5. Kids from the streets who vanished, and nobody noticed except other homeless youth. Foster combines this with her existing federal evidence and creates a prosecutable case showing pattern and practice of discrimination in how Millbrook PD handles missing persons. But they still need to prove the trafficking operation, still need to rescue whoever's being held now. Their partnership deepens through the work. Foster buys Keisha new clothes, not charity but necessity for court appearances to come. She gets Duke checked by a vet, pays for his medications. She rents a motel room 2 towns over, gives Keisha a safe place to sleep and shower and heal. They eat meals together, and Foster talks about her life. Her father's wrongful conviction eventually overturned, but too late to save his marriage or his health. How she joined the FBI determined to be different, to be better. Keisha shares pieces of her own story. The mother who disappeared when she was 2, the foster homes where she never quite fit, the final home where the foster father's hands wandered and she ran rather than report it because who would believe her over him? Foster listens without judgment, without advice, just listens, and Keisha feels seen for the first time in years. On the 4th night, they stake out the mill again. Duke is with them. His shoulder healed enough for light duty, and he's proven himself valuable as an early warning system. They're positioned in the woods, cameras ready, when Foster's phone buzzes with a text. She reads it, and her face goes hard. Marcus woke up. He remembers something. The attack on us, right before the crash, he saw the other driver's face. It was Mayor Hutchins. "The mayor tried to kill you?" Keisha asks. Foster nods slowly. "Or someone who looks like him." Marcus says he's certain, which means this goes higher than we thought. The corruption isn't just the sheriff, it's the town leadership. Then who can we trust? No one local. We go straight to the FBI. Federal prosecutors, we bypass the entire local system. Foster starts typing on her phone, sending encrypted messages to her superiors, when Duke growls low. Keisha's hand goes to his collar, and she points. Through the trees, flashlights, moving toward them. Multiple beams, spread out in a search pattern. "They know we're here," Foster breathes. "Run," Keisha says, already moving. They split up like they planned, Foster heading toward the road, where she parked their car 2 miles away, Keisha and Duke heading deeper into the woods toward town. The flashlights follow both of them, but more track toward Keisha. She runs hard, using every trick she knows, crossing the creek to break her scent trail, climbing up through a drainage pipe to emerge on a different street, doubling back through yards with no lights. Duke stays close, silent now, trained through necessity. She can hear shouts behind her, coordinated and professional. These aren't random guys with guns. This is an organized hunt. She makes it to the edge of Millbrook's downtown just as her phone vibrates. Text from Foster. "Get to Carolyn's. Safe house. I'll lead them away." Keisha changes direction, sprinting through back alleys, and doesn't stop until she reaches Miss Carolyn's small house on Maple Street. She pounds on the door, and Carolyn opens it immediately, like she was waiting, and pulls Keisha and Duke inside. The house is dark except for one lamp in the living room. Carolyn locks 3 deadbolts, pulls curtains, and leads Keisha downstairs to a basement. But it's not a normal basement. There's a hidden door behind shelves of canned goods, and behind that door, a room. Small, comfortable, with a bed and supplies. A safe room. "How long have you had this?" Keisha asks. Carolyn smiles sadly. "Since 1967. My husband built it during the riots. We've used it on and off ever since, whenever our people needed hiding. Our people." Keisha understands. She's being hidden by the same kind of underground network that hid freedom riders and civil rights workers and anyone else the racist power structure wanted to silence. She sleeps fitfully, waking every hour to check her phone. No word from Foster. Morning comes and Carolyn brings food, news. They're saying on the TV that FBI agent Foster kidnapped a local girl at gunpoint. They got pictures. Video, they say, shows it. They're calling her a rogue agent, saying she's dangerous. Keisha's blood runs cold. It's a lie. She saved me. She's been helping me. I know that, child. But the town doesn't. Sheriff's got everyone convinced. They're forming search parties, armed civilians looking for you both. Keisha climbs the stairs, peers through the curtains, and sees them. Trucks parked on the street, men with rifles, checking houses. Millbrook has turned against them, and there's nowhere left to run. Foster makes it to the highway, flags down a passing semi, and convinces the driver to let her use his CB radio. She contacts FBI headquarters directly, reports the situation, requests immediate tactical support and federal marshals. They promise backup by morning, 6 hours away. She thanks the truck driver, pays him $50 for his trouble, and starts hiking back toward Millbrook. She needs to get to Keisha, needs to make sure the girl survives until backup arrives. But when she reaches the edge of town, she sees the roadblock. Sheriff's deputies have set up checkpoints on every road in and out, checking every vehicle, searching for her and Keisha. Foster circles around, approaches from the south through farmland, and finally reaches Carolyn's house using backyards and darkness as cover. Carolyn lets her in, and the reunion in the basement is brief but emotional. Keisha hugs Foster, something she never does, and Duke actually wags his tail. "You came back," Keisha says. "Of course I came back. We're partners." Foster checks her phone for the 20th time. Still no confirmation from FBI headquarters. The backup should have arrived an hour ago, but there's nothing. No convoy, no tactical team, no federal marshals. She calls again and gets a bureaucrat who explains that due to weather conditions and logistical challenges, the backup has been delayed. Expected arrival time now 8 hours. 8 hours? People are being held captive right now. We have exigent circumstances. The bureaucrat is apologetic but firm. Protocol must be followed. Foster hangs up, wants to throw the phone against the wall, but controls herself. Keisha watches her. They're not coming fast enough, are they? No. And I'm starting to think that's intentional. Foster pulls up a map on her phone, studies the roads into Millbrook. Look at this. All main roads have checkpoints. Sheriff Morrison claims it's emergency road repairs, but it's a blockade. He's sealed the town. Why? Because he knows federal agents are coming. He's buying time to move evidence, hide witnesses, maybe worse. Carolyn descends the stairs carrying a pot of coffee and her own phone. "Y'all need to see this." She shows them a live stream from the town hall. Mayor Hutchins is holding a press conference, and the story he's telling is pure fiction. According to Hutchins, FBI agent Rachel Foster went rogue after her partner was attacked. She became convinced of a vast conspiracy where none existed and kidnapped a vulnerable homeless girl to use as a witness for her delusional theories. There's video, obviously edited, showing Foster grabbing Keisha's arm outside the motel. There are statements from concerned citizens about Foster's erratic behavior. There's even a psychiatrist on screen questioning Foster's mental stability. "This is character assassination," Foster says. "They're destroying my credibility before I can testify." Hutchins continues. "We've been in contact with FBI headquarters. They've assured us that Agent Foster is not acting under federal authority. We're treating this as a kidnapping situation. Our priority is rescuing young Keisha Williams safely." "He even got my name right," Keisha mutters. Hutchins isn't finished. "This tragedy highlights the danger of federal overreach and government agents who think they're above the law. Millbrook is a peaceful community. We don't need Washington bureaucrats telling us how to live. We especially don't need armed federal agents terrorizing our young people." The rhetoric shifts, becomes about states' rights and small-town values and big government tyranny. Keisha recognizes it for what it is, the same language used for generations to justify oppression, to prevent federal intervention in local injustice. "They're using me," she says, "making themselves look like heroes rescuing a black girl from a dangerous white agent. It's perfect cover." Foster nods grimly. "And if we end up dead, they'll say I killed you and then myself. Murder-suicide by a mentally unstable agent. Case closed." Outside, they hear vehicles, loudspeakers, Sheriff Morrison's voice amplified and carrying down the street. "We know you're in there, Foster. Send out the girl. Come out with your hands up. Nobody else needs to get hurt." Carolyn peers through the curtains. 6 trucks, maybe 20 men. Some are deputies. Some are just townspeople with guns. "We're trapped," Keisha says. Foster checks her weapon, does a tactical assessment, and comes up empty. They're outnumbered, outgunned, and in a residential area where any firefight would endanger civilians. "I'm sorry," Foster tells Keisha. "I promised I'd protect you, and I failed." Keisha looks at Duke, at Carolyn, at this FBI agent who tried so hard. Then she thinks about all the people being held at the mill, about Jamal and Destiny and Carlos, about David Chen somewhere out there, if he's even still alive, and she realizes something. "They want me to be a victim," she says slowly. They need me to be a victim so their story works. A helpless black girl rescued by brave local authorities from a crazy federal agent. That's exactly what they want. Foster agrees. Then let's not give it to them. Keisha stands, starts pacing. What if we flip the script? What if instead of hiding, we go on offense? What if we get our truth out first, loud enough that they can't silence it? How? Foster asks. We can't get past the roadblocks to reach outside media. Carolyn clears her throat. Maybe you can't, but I can. Both Foster and Keisha turn to her. Carolyn smiles, and it's the smile of someone who's been underestimated her entire life and learned to use it. Y'all think an old black woman like me runs a soup kitchen all by myself? Think I got the money for that building, for food, for supplies, just from church donations? Who are you? Foster asks. Someone who's been fighting these battles longer than you've been alive, child. Come on, there's people you need to meet. Carolyn leads them deeper into the basement to another hidden door, this one behind the furnace. Behind it, a tunnel. Old brick, built during Reconstruction or maybe even before. This house was part of the Underground Railroad, Carolyn explains as they walk through the tunnel, flashlights cutting the darkness. Been in my family since 1860. We learned early that sometimes you got to have secret paths if you want to survive. The tunnel emerges in the basement of the Baptist church, 6 blocks away, and in that basement, waiting, are people. 15 black residents of Millbrook, ranging from elderly to middle-aged, all carrying folders and phones and the bearing of organized resistance. Mr. Washington, 70s, former schoolteacher, steps forward. Agent Foster, Miss Keisha, welcome. We've been expecting you. Expecting us? Keisha asks. Miss Carolyn called us 2 days ago, said y'all might need help. She's been keeping us updated. He gestures to the group. We're Millbrook's memory. We're the people who document what the powerful want forgotten. And we've been watching Sheriff Morrison for 27 years. The church basement becomes a command center. Mr. Washington spreads files across a table, decades of documentation. Photographs of Sheriff Morrison with known criminals, going back to when he was a deputy in the 90s. Financial records showing unexplained deposits, property purchases beyond his salary. Witness statements from black residents about harassment, false arrests, evidence planting. We tried reporting this to federal authorities 3 times, Mr. Washington explains. 1998, 2004, and 2012. Each time someone came, took our statements, promised an investigation. Nothing ever happened. A younger woman, maybe 40, adds, my brother was arrested on drug charges in 2008. Said the drugs were planted. Morrison was the arresting officer. My brother died in custody 3 weeks later. They called it suicide. Her voice is steady, but her eyes are wet. We stopped believing the system would protect us. Foster looks at the evidence, at the faces around her, and feels the weight of institutional failure. I'm sorry. The system should have acted, should have protected you. I can't undo that. No, you can't, Mr. Washington agrees. But you can help us now. You're a federal agent with clearance and authority. We're local people with documentation and courage. Together, maybe we can actually make something happen. They spend the next hour combining evidence. Foster's federal investigation into trafficking and corruption, matched with the community's decades of local documentation, creates a comprehensive case. Financial crimes, civil rights violations, human trafficking, conspiracy, murder. It's overwhelming in scope and damning in detail. Why didn't Morrison destroy all this evidence? Keisha asks. Mr. Washington smiles without humor. Because he doesn't know it exists. He thinks we're invisible. He thinks old black folks don't matter, don't have skills or connections or power. He's ignored us so thoroughly he never considered we might be watching him back. The group has more than just paper evidence. They have photographs taken through telephoto lenses, audio recordings made at town council meetings, financial tracking showing money laundering through local businesses. They've been building this case for years, just waiting for someone with the authority to act on it. The trafficking is newer. An older woman named Mrs. Roberts says. Started about 5 years ago. We noticed young people disappearing. Notice the pattern. Black kids, Latino kids, poor kids. We started our own missing persons database, since the police wouldn't. She shows them a spreadsheet, 23 names, dates, circumstances, last known locations. Foster's list had 17. The community identified 6 more the FBI never knew about. Keisha reads the names, recognizes 4 of them. Kids she knew from the streets, from the soup kitchen, from late nights sharing space in abandoned buildings. Her throat tightens. They're real people, she says. Not just statistics. Jamal wanted to be a teacher. Destiny was learning to code on library computers. Carlos could draw anything. He was going to art school. I know, baby, Mrs. Roberts says gently. We know all their stories. We remember them, even if the system forgot. The plan comes together piece by piece. They can't get past the roadblocks physically, but they can get information out digitally. Carolyn's Soup Kitchen funds come from a network of donors, some of them quite influential, including a civil rights attorney in Atlanta and a journalist for a major news network. They start making calls. The attorney contacts federal prosecutors directly, not local offices, but the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. The journalist begins fact-checking the evidence, preparing a story. Foster uses her FBI credentials to send encrypted files to headquarters, bypassing local channels. But they need more than evidence. They need to hold out until backup arrives, and they need to expose the conspiracy so publicly that it can't be buried. The fall festival, Keisha says suddenly. Everyone turns to her. It's tonight. Whole town will be downtown. If we can get to the stage, get on the PA system, live stream everything, we can tell the truth to hundreds of people at once. They'll try to stop you, Mr. Washington points out. We'll create diversions, Carolyn says. Split their attention. Half of us make noise in different parts of town, draw away Morrison's people. The other half helps Keisha and Agent Foster reach the festival. Foster shakes her head. It's too dangerous. If something goes wrong, Keisha could be killed. I could be killed hiding in this basement too, Keisha counters. At least this way we're fighting back. At least this way people will know the truth. The group debates, argues, plans. In the end, they agree. It's risky, but necessary. They spend 2 hours coordinating, assigning roles, testing equipment. Carolyn's grandson, a tech-savvy 19-year-old named Marcus, sets up multiple streaming accounts on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We'll stream to all of them simultaneously, he explains. Even if they shut down one platform, the others keep going. And once it's on the internet, it can't be erased. They gather supplies. Battery-powered megaphone, portable speaker, multiple phones for recording. Duke gets a vest that says, "Service Dog," making him harder to separate from Keisha legally. Foster checks her weapon, though she hopes not to use it. As evening approaches, Morrison's voice comes over the loudspeaker again. "Final warning, Foster. We're coming in. You've got 5 minutes to surrender." Carolyn walks to the basement stairs, then turns back. Sheriff Morrison forgot something. This church has been standing since 1857. We've survived worse than him, and we'll survive after he's gone. And he doesn't know all our exits. She leads them to yet another hidden passage, this one behind a false wall near the choir room. It opens into a maintenance tunnel connecting the church to the old library, and from there to a network of storm drains that run beneath downtown Millbrook. "Y'all ready?" Carolyn asks. Keisha looks at Duke, at Foster, at the community members who've risked everything to help them. Let's do this. The fall festival is in full swing when they emerge from the storm drained 3 blocks from the town square. Music and lights and the smell of fried food. Hundreds of people, maybe the whole town, gathered for what should be a celebration. Foster, Keisha, and Duke move through back alleys while Carolyn's team executes their diversions. Fire alarm at the high school, 3 blocks east. Sheriff's deputies peel off to respond. Anonymous call about a break-in at the mayor's office, 4 blocks west. More deputies redirect. Systematically, Morrison's forces are being split, drawn away from the festival. Keisha and Foster reach the mayor's office while it's empty, everyone at the festival or responding to false alarms. Foster picks the lock, they slip inside, and Duke takes position by the door as lookout. The mayor's office is on the second floor. Wood paneling and portrait paintings, and an antique desk that probably cost more than Keisha saw in a year on the streets. Foster heads straight for the safe behind a painting. She pulls out her lock-picking tools, works the combination, and after 3 minutes of tense silence, it clicks open. Inside, the metal briefcase. Their original evidence, the case they thought was lost, plus files, ledgers, photographs, correspondence. Mayor Hutchins has been keeping records of his crimes, probably for blackmail or leverage, and it's a prosecutor's dream. Photograph everything, Foster says, already snapping pictures. Keisha uses her phone, works methodically, while Duke's low growl warns them someone's approaching. They freeze. Voices in the hallway, getting closer. Sheriff Morrison's voice. The FBI team finally broke through the blockade. They'll be here in 20 minutes. We need to stage this right. Another voice, cultured and cold, unfamiliar to Keisha. Then we accelerate the timeline. Foster and the girl die in a shootout tonight. Self-defense. Make sure there are weapons near their bodies. Make it look justified. Morrison sounds uncertain. This has gone too far. Those agents, all those kids. You're in too deep, Dale. The cold voice turns threatening. Your choice is prison or power. Choose. Keisha looks at Foster, who's gone pale. They're listening to their own planned murder. Foster motions to the window, their escape route, but before they can move, Duke growls louder. The door opens. Sheriff Morrison stands there, hand on his weapon, shocked. Behind him, a well-dressed man in his 50s, silver hair, expensive suit. Victor Kane, according to his monogrammed briefcase. They all freeze for a moment that stretches like taffy. Then Foster moves, fast, training taking over. She's between Keisha and the men, weapon drawn, voice command steady. FBI. You're both under arrest. Kane laughs, actually laughs. You're alone, Agent Foster. No backup, no authority here. Just another dead federal agent who overstepped. Morrison draws his weapon reluctantly. The standoff is crystalline, sharp edges, and no good options. Foster can't shoot them without becoming the criminal they're trying to paint her as. Morrison can't shoot first without admitting she was right. Kane has no such limitations but needs Morrison to pull the trigger. Keisha's mind races. Duke is tense beside her, trained to attack on command, but attacking Morrison means Duke gets shot. They need a different play. She pulls out Reed's phone, holds it up. Everything you just said? Recorded. Already uploaded to the cloud. Already sent to multiple people. Kane's face hardens. Give me that phone. Come take it, Keisha challenges. Duke's hackles rise, and Kane thinks better of it. Morrison's hand wavers on his gun. I never wanted this. The trafficking, the murders, it was supposed to be simple payoffs, looking the other way. When did it become this? When you took the first bribe, Foster says. When you decided some people matter less than others. When you let kids disappear because they weren't worth your time. Kane pulls out his own gun, points it at Keisha. Phone. Now. Or the girl dies. Foster's weapon shifts to Kane. Shoot her, and you're dead. Shoot me, and Morrison shoots you, Kane counters. Then your partner arrives and arrests Morrison. Everyone loses except maybe the girl if she's fast enough to run. Mexican standoff. 3 weapons, 3 people with their fingers on triggers. Keisha's heart hammers so loud she's sure they can hear it. Duke whines, uncertain, picking up on her fear. Then Keisha does something no one expects. She bolts. Straight toward Kane, not away. Drops low. Slides like she's stealing second base. And Duke follows her lead. Goes for Kane's gun hand. Kane fires. Bullet going wide. And Duke's teeth sink into his wrist. The gun clatters. Morrison swings his weapon toward Duke, and Foster shoots, aiming low, catching Morrison in the thigh. He goes down. Keisha grabs the evidence briefcase and runs, crashing through the office door into the hallway, Duke right behind her. Foster follows, covering their retreat, and they're down the stairs and out the back door before Kane can recover. They run for the festival. Behind them, shouts. Morrison calling for backup on his radio. They burst onto Main Street where the festival is in full swing, and suddenly they're in a crowd, hundreds of people, music blaring, lights flashing, perfect chaos. Marcus, Carolyn's grandson, spots them, waves from near the stage where a local band is playing. He's set up equipment, multiple phones on tripods, all connected to portable Wi-Fi hotspots. "Ready when you are," he shouts over the music. Foster and Keisha push through the crowd toward the stage. Deputy Reed spots them, moves to intercept, but Mr. Washington steps in his path, accidentally spilling lemonade all over Reed's uniform. The delay is seconds, but it's enough. Keisha jumps onto the stage, grabs the microphone right out of the singer's hand. The music stops, confused, and the crowd goes silent. Hundreds of faces turn toward her. She sees them seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. Not invisible anymore. Not ignorable. "My name is Keisha Williams," she says, voice amplified across the square. "I've been homeless in this town for 2 years. Most of you never saw me. Tonight, I need you to see me. I need you to hear the truth." Deputy Reed pushes through the crowd, other deputies moving from different directions. The net is closing. Marcus hits record on all devices, streams going live, red lights indicating broadcast. Foster stands at the base of the stage, weapon visible, positioning herself between Keisha and the approaching deputies. "I have proof," Keisha continues, holding up the phone. "I have evidence. And I'm going to show you everything." The first image projects onto the festival's large screen behind her. Sheriff Morrison meeting with known traffickers. "Your sheriff is corrupt." Next image. Financial records. "He's been taking bribes for decades." Next, photos of missing persons. These people disappeared. These kids. Black kids, brown kids, poor kids, and Morrison never looked for them because he was paid not to. The crowd murmurs, some angry, some confused, some denying. Maria Garcia's mother pushes forward, sees her daughter's photo on the screen, recognizes her baby missing for 4 months. She screams, a sound of grief and rage that cuts through everything. Other families surge forward, recognizing their missing loved ones. The mood shifts, crystallizes. Reed reaches the stage, starts climbing up. Foster moves to block him. "Stand down, deputy, she's lying," Reed shouts. "It's all fake, is it?" Keisha asks. She plays the recording, Morrison and Kane's voices clear and damning over the speaker system, planning murder, admitting complicity, discussing traffic victims like cattle. The crowd erupts. Some refuse to believe, shouting about fake evidence and federal manipulation. But others, the families who've been silenced, they believe. They've known something was wrong for years. Mrs. Williams weeps openly, and others join her, a chorus of grief for children lost. Then Reed does something that shocks everyone. He lowers his weapon. "She's telling the truth," he says, voice rough but carrying. "Morrison ordered me to hurt her, to kill her dog. I was too afraid to say no. I was a coward." Confession, public and damning. Other deputies hesitate, look at each other, and one by one they stand down. Not all of them, but enough. The ones who didn't know the full extent, the ones who suspected but were too afraid to speak, they find their courage. Morrison limps into the square, blood seeping through his pant leg, Kane beside him. They're outnumbered now, hundreds of citizens watching, phones recording, streams broadcasting. Morrison reaches for his weapon, but hands grab him. Townspeople who believe Keisha, who believe their own eyes and ears, who are done being complicit in silence. In the distance, sirens. Multiple vehicles, federal vehicles. The FBI tactical team finally arrived. Agent Chen is with them, recovered enough to work, and when he sees Foster and Keisha alive on that stage, his face floods with relief. The arrests happen fast. Morrison, Kane, Mayor Hutchins trying to flee to Mexico but caught at the airport. 17 other officials and conspirators rounded up in coordinated raids. The trafficking network's locations hit simultaneously, and victims are rescued. 63 people across 5 states, young people who'd been moved and sold and used. David Chen among them, found in a facility in Alabama, alive, traumatized but alive. The reunion between the Chen brothers, makes even hardened federal agents tear up. And through it all, Keisha's live stream continues. 3 million views by morning. National news descends on Millbrook. The story becomes a symbol, becomes a rallying cry. A homeless black teenager and her dog, saving not just 2 FBI agents but an entire town, exposing systemic racism and corruption, forcing a reckoning that people tried to avoid. But in the evidence they recover, Foster finds something that stops her cold. A file labeled Historic Cases, and in it, details about trafficking victims from 15 years ago. One name jumps out. Jennifer Williams, age 24, black female, last seen in Millbrook, Georgia, with her 2-year-old daughter, Keisha's mother. Foster brings the file to Keisha carefully, sits beside her, explains what she found. Keisha reads through tears. Her mother didn't abandon her. Her mother was taken, kidnapped by the same network, likely killed. Morrison was a deputy back then, involved in the case, and he buried it. Keisha's entire life, the foster homes, the streets, the invisibility, all of it traces back to this conspiracy. When Morrison is brought in for interrogation, Keisha is allowed to confront him through one-way glass. He sits in handcuffs, broken and defeated, and Chen questions him. Jennifer Williams, what happened to her? Morrison's voice is flat. There were so many. We never kept track. They were nobody. No one would miss them. Keisha's hands ball into fists. Foster puts a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. My mother was somebody, Keisha says, even though Morrison can't hear her through the glass. All of them were somebody. You just didn't see us. The federal prosecutor enters the room, a sharp woman in her 50s named Diana Ortega. She's been reviewing the evidence, and she turns to Keisha. We'll need you to testify. Your testimony will be crucial to taking down the entire organization. It won't be easy. Defense attorneys will attack your credibility, your background. They'll make you relive trauma. But your voice matters. Will you do it? 6 months pass like a river, steady and inevitable. The trial dominates news cycles, becomes the biggest human trafficking prosecution in Southeast history. Morrison is sentenced first, 40 years with no parole, the judge citing the aggravating factor of his abuse of authority and the racial bias in his crimes. Mayor Hutchins gets 35 years, Victor Kane gets life, and 17 other co-conspirators receive sentences ranging from 10 to 25 years. Deputy Reed, who cooperated fully and testified for the prosecution, gets 5 years reduced to time served plus probation, his cooperation earning him leniency. The jury deliberates for 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The trafficked victims, 63 souls rescued from hell, begin the long process of healing. Counseling, rehabilitation, family reunification where possible. David Chen reunites with his family, undergoes therapy, and slowly begins to reclaim his life. Marcus Chen returns to work, but something has changed in him. The case, his brother's disappearance, it's shown him the gaps in the system, the people who fall through. Keisha's testimony is the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. For 3 days, she sits on that witness stand and tells her story. The defense attorneys try to break her, question her credibility, suggest she's lying for attention or money, imply that a homeless teenager can't be trusted. But Keisha doesn't break. She looks the jury in the eyes and speaks truth. Describes watching people suffer on the streets. Describes being invisible until she saved 2 federal agents. Describes finding out her mother didn't abandon her but was stolen. The jury believes her. America believes her. Media coverage is relentless. Interview requests flood in. 60 Minutes, 20/20, CNN. Everyone wants to talk to the homeless girl who took down a trafficking ring. Publishers offer book deals. Hollywood inquires about movie rights. Speaking invitations pile up. Keisha turns down most of it, overwhelmed by attention she never wanted. But she agrees to a few interviews with journalists who promise to focus on the systemic issues, not just her personal story. Millbrook undergoes transformation. Federal oversight of the police department is mandated for 5 years. A new sheriff is appointed, a black woman named Lieutenant Colonel Jasmine Harris, 20-year veteran of Atlanta PD, with a reputation for integrity and reform. She cleans house, fires deputies involved in the corruption, retrains the entire force on de-escalation and bias recognition. The town council is dissolved and replaced through special elections. New leadership, more diverse, more accountable. Town meetings become actual forums for community input instead of rubber stamp sessions for the powerful. Carolyn's underground network transitions into an official nonprofit, the Millbrook Community Advocacy Coalition, funded by grants and donations, focused on documenting police interactions, providing legal aid to marginalized residents, and ensuring the changes stick. Mr. Washington serves as president, and they hire a full-time staff including 2 civil rights attorneys. The national conversation sparked by Keisha's case leads to legislative action. Senator Tamika James of Georgia introduces the Justice for the Invisible Act, commonly known as Keisha's Law, which establishes federal standards for missing persons investigations. It mandates that all cases be investigated with equal resources regardless of the victim's race, socioeconomic status, or housing situation. It passes both houses with bipartisan support and is signed into law. Keisha becomes an activist almost by accident, simply by speaking her truth. She talks about systemic injustice, about who the system sees and who it ignores, about how being poor and black meant she was invisible until she was useful. Her words resonate. Youth organizations invite her to speak. Universities offer her platforms. She finds her voice, finds power in testimony. Foster and Keisha's relationship evolves into something like family. Foster formally becomes Keisha's mentor through the FBI's community outreach program, but it's deeper than that. They talk daily, process trauma together, plan for the future. Foster helps Keisha apply for scholarships, study for her GED, prepare for college. Agent Chen joins their unofficial support network, grateful beyond words for Keisha's role in finding his brother. Keisha finds housing with Miss Carolyn, who becomes a licensed foster parent specifically to give Keisha a stable home. It's the first real home Keisha remembers, a place where she belongs, where she's wanted. Duke gets officially registered as a therapy animal, his presence helping Keisha manage PTSD from the ordeal. Carolyn's house fills with warmth and cooking and safety. Keisha enrolls in school, catches up academically with surprising speed. Turns out she's smart, always was, just never had stable access to education. She excels in history and English, struggles with math, but improves with tutoring. Teachers see her potential, colleges notice. By spring, she has scholarship offers from 7 universities, including full rides to Spelman and Howard. Recognition comes from unexpected places. The FBI director personally commends Keisha and Carolyn's community network at a ceremony in Washington. The president issues a statement praising their courage. Governor of Georgia gives Keisha the state's highest civilian honor. Agent Foster and Agent Chen receive medals for their work, get promoted, and are assigned to head a new FBI task force focused on trafficking and corruption in small towns, using Millbrook as the model for intervention. Deputy Reed, released from minimal custody, works with community organizations on police reform. He speaks publicly about how fear and complicity enabled corruption, how staying silent made him part of the problem. Not everyone forgives him, but his willingness to own his mistakes and work toward change earns grudging respect from some. The memorial for trafficking victims is unveiled in downtown Millbrook on a clear Saturday in April. 23 names carved in granite, including Jennifer Williams, Keisha's mother. Families gather, weep, remember. Local artists create a sculpture, a circle of hands reaching upward, symbolizing hope and connection. Keisha is invited to speak at the unveiling. Mayor Harris introduces her, and the crowd of 500 people applauds as Keisha walks to the podium. Duke sits beside her, calm and protective. She sees faces she recognizes, people who ignored her when she was homeless, people who called police on her, people who assumed the worst. Now they applaud her, call her hero, take selfies with her for social media. The irony is sharp enough to cut. Keisha begins her prepared speech, but halfway through, she stops, looks at the crowd, really looks at them. "I see some of you taking pictures," she says, deviating from her notes, posting about this, sharing my story, calling me an inspiration. Silence. Uncomfortable. Uncertain. But 6 months ago, I was just a homeless black girl sleeping in a boxcar with my dog. How many of you saw me then? How many of you looked at me and thought I mattered? The question hangs. People shift, look away, and the discomfort is palpable. The truth is, I'm the same person I was before. What changed wasn't me. What changed was that the world couldn't ignore me anymore. I became useful. I became valuable. But I was always valuable. I was always worth noticing. We all are. She points to the homeless population gathered at the edge of the ceremony, people who came for the free food, people still living on Millbrook streets. There are still girls like me in this town. Black kids, poor kids, invisible kids that nobody sees. Saving those FBI agents didn't make me worth noticing. I was always worth noticing. We all are. So if you really want to honor these victims, if you really want to make sure this never happens again, start seeing people before they have to save someone to matter. Start caring about kids when they're alive and struggling, not just after they're dead and you can feel good about crying at their memorial. She walks away from the podium before the ceremony officially ends. The crowd murmurs, some offended, some thoughtful, some convicted. Keisha doesn't care. She's done performing gratitude, done being the acceptable face of trauma. She walks to the soup kitchen where she used to eat, sits with the current homeless population, shares the plate lunch they're serving. Duke settles at her feet. These are her people, have always been her people, and she won't forget that just because she has a roof now. Foster finds her there 20 minutes later. That was quite a speech. You know you probably lost some supporters. Keisha shrugs. I don't want supporters who only care now because I'm famous. I want things to actually change. Foster sits beside her, accepts a plate from the volunteer, and they eat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Foster says, I came to offer you something. The FBI is creating a new community outreach initiative. We want someone who understands what it's like to be overlooked by the system. Someone who can bridge the gap between federal law enforcement and marginalized communities. We want you. After you finish high school, if you're interested, maybe during college as an intern. We'll work around your education. Keisha looks at the people around her, at Duke, at Foster. Can I bring Duke? Absolutely. He's part of the package. Then I'm interested. But I have conditions, real changes, not just good PR. Accountability, training on racial bias, prioritizing cases that get ignored. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Foster extends her hand. Deal. They shake, and Keisha feels something new. Not hope exactly, that's too simple. More like purpose. Like her pain might actually mean something, might actually create change that lasts. The sun sets over Millbrook as Keisha and Duke walk through town. She passes places that used to be hiding spots, the boxcar by the tracks where she slept, the alley behind the diner where they threw out food after closing, the storm drain where she took shelter during heavy rain. All familiar, all part of her, but different now. She has somewhere to go, someone waiting for her. Carolyn texted asking what she wants for dinner. Such a normal question. Such a miraculous question for someone who spent 2 years not knowing where her next meal would come from. People wave as she passes. Some genuine, some performative. She's learned to tell the difference. Mr. Washington calls out from his porch, asks how she's doing with her college applications. She stops, talks with him for 10 minutes about Spelman versus Howard, about whether to major in criminal justice or social work. His advice is thoughtful, asks good questions, doesn't tell her what to do but helps her think it through. This is what community should be, she realizes. This seeing each other, caring about each other's futures, treating each person as someone who matters. On the corner of 5th and Main, she sees him. A boy, maybe 12, thin and dirty, digging through a trash can behind the grocery store. He finds half a sandwich, checks it for mold, starts eating. Keisha's heart clenches. She knows that hunger. She crosses the street, approaches slowly so she doesn't startle him. Duke stays calm, friendly, letting the boy see he's safe. Hey, Keisha says. I'm Keisha. You hungry? The boy looks at her with the wariness of someone who's learned not to trust easily. Maybe. Come on. I know a place that has real food. Soup kitchen at the Baptist church. They're open for another hour. The boy hesitates. Keisha understands. Accepting help means admitting you need it, means risking vulnerability. I used to eat there every day, she tells him. For 2 years. The food's actually pretty good. And Miss Carolyn, she runs it. She's safe. She won't ask questions you don't want to answer. Something in his face shifts. You're that girl. The one on the news. Yeah, that's me. Used to be homeless, just like you. Used to be? Living with Miss Carolyn now. But I remember what it's like. Every day of it. The boy studies her, deciding. Then he nods. Okay. Food sounds good. They walk together toward the church, Duke between them, and Keisha asks his name. Jaden, he tells her. He's been on the streets 3 months since his grandmother died, and social services couldn't find a foster placement. He's been eating from trash cans and sleeping in the park and hiding from police. The story is familiar, variations on themes Keisha knows by heart. At the soup kitchen, Carolyn takes one look at Jaden and gets him a hot meal, extra portions, and sits with him while he eats. She doesn't pressure him, doesn't demand his story, just feeds him and makes him feel human. Later, quietly, she tells Keisha she'll make some calls, see about getting Jaden into a shelter, maybe even a foster home, maybe even her home if he needs it. Keisha helps clean up after the meal, a habit from her homeless days that she maintains because remembering is important. Foster texts asking if she wants to watch a movie tonight, and Keisha smiles because having plans, having people who want to spend time with her, it still feels new enough to be special. As she walks home in the twilight, Duke padding beside her, Keisha thinks about visibility. How she spent years being unseen, how that invisibility almost killed her, how being seen saved her, but also complicated her life in ways she's still processing. The attention is exhausting, the expectations overwhelming, the pressure to be inspiration and symbol and perfect victim all at once. But she's learning to set boundaries, to protect her own healing, to be human rather than hero. She thinks about her mother, Jennifer Williams, and imagines what her life might have been if the system had cared, if police had investigated, if a young black woman's disappearance had mattered. Keisha carries her mother's memory, speaks her name in interviews, makes sure Jennifer is remembered as a person, not just a statistic. And she thinks about the future, about college and the FBI internship and the work ahead. There are still kids like Jaden on the streets. There are still systems that need changing. There are still people who are invisible because society finds it convenient to look away. The work isn't finished. Maybe it never will be. But she's not alone in it anymore. As she reaches Carolyn's house, warm light glowing in the windows, she pauses. Turns back to look at the town, at the streets she survived on, at the place that tried to kill her and also saved her. The girl nobody saw became the woman nobody could ignore, she murmurs to Duke. But more importantly, she became the woman who made sure no one else stayed invisible. Duke wags his tail, and they go inside to dinner, to safety, to home. Being invisible taught Keisha something important. Everyone matters, even when no one's watching, especially then. That's the lesson she'll carry forever. That's the lesson she'll make sure others learn, not through speeches or interviews, but through action, through seeing, through caring about people before they have to become heroes to be noticed. She's not a hero. She's just a girl who survived, who fought back, who refused to stay silent. And if that changed the world a little bit, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. The conversation continues beyond Keisha's story. Her courage sparked a national dialogue about who we see and who we ignore, about how poverty and race intersect to make some people invisible to systems designed to protect everyone. Keisha's law passes, yes, but implementation is the real challenge. Advocacy groups use her case as a template, pushing for reform in how missing persons investigations are conducted, demanding equal resources regardless of the victim's background. Progress is slow, uneven, frustrating. But progress happens because Keisha and people like her refuse to let the moment pass without change. If you're still watching, think about this question. Who are the invisible people in your community? Who are the kids, the families, the individuals living on the margins that we walk past without seeing? And what would change if we started noticing them before crisis forces us to pay attention? Share your thoughts in the comments. This story is one of thousands that need to be told, one of thousands still happening in communities across America. If you believe that every person matters, regardless of their circumstances, hit that like button. If you want to see more stories that challenge us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society, subscribe to this channel, and please share this story. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who has the power to make change. Share it with someone who feels invisible themselves, so they know their voice matters too. Thank you for listening to Keisha's story. Thank you for seeing her, for seeing all the people this story represents. May we all work toward a world where no one has to be a hero just to be noticed, where every person is valued simply for being human. Take care of each other out there. Remember, the change we need starts with seeing each other truly, completely, with compassion and commitment to justice. Until next time,